Lila and Ethan bumped into each other purely by chance. She was wandering to the garden on her free day, and it turned out she'd forgotten her parasol somewhere, a parasol she didn't even need that afternoon. Ethan hurried after her, clutching the misplaced object, and returned it to her. That's how their first chat began, and Lila felt truly thankful to him. While they talked for those brief moments, she couldn't stop gazing at his dazzling ocean blue eyes. Lila promises that's when she tumbled completely in love. At that time, she wasn't focused on starting a deep romance. She hadn't planned any of it. It all just unfolded naturally. Folks often call it destiny. But Lila didn't fuss over such lofty thoughts. She simply enjoyed spending time with a charming fellow who showered her with full attention, and she loved relaxing with him whenever she wasn't busy. Ethan drove trucks for a shipping firm, while Lila worked at a customer service desk. She never worried much about chasing a fancy profession after school. She just wanted any work that would stop her from depending on her folks, so she grabbed the first gig she found. It's amusing how those short-term roles often stretch into something lasting. They'd been together for barely a year when Lila learned she was expecting. It surprised Ethan. She'd been delayed, so she tried a test to be sure, and indeed, it showed she was pregnant. At first, she panicked, but then a rush of joy swept through her. She'd grown weary of her work, and the thought of stepping away for a few years on family leave felt amazing. Better yet, she hoped she could rely on Ethan to handle the money side. Ethan, a sincere and plain-spoken man, quickly decided they should tie the knot. He didn't exactly view Lila as his soulmate, but to him, it was the proper choice. He'd been raised without a father, and when his mother explained how his dad had fled the instant he heard a child was coming, Ethan swore he'd never abandon any woman like that. He'd support her no matter what. So, they laid out their plans. No lavish, grand ceremony, just dear pals and can gather for a simple party at a nearby diner. Afterward, they parted for a bit. Back then, Ethan didn't own a home, but he soon found an answer. His elder sister, Mia, had been staying overseas for some time. Though she owned a lovely flat back home, she didn't want to lease it to unknowns. She spent plenty of cash fixing it up and decorating, intending to sell it someday. But the housing market there wasn't strong, so she chose to wait. Then Ethan rang her with a huge update about expecting a little one and tying the knot. Mia was already considering handing him the flat, so he hardly had a hint. She was delighted to let her brother and future niece or nephew live there without stress. The place was just sitting unused, so why not aid kin? Before long, the fresh couple settled into a snug, fully equipped home. Lila signed up for her baby checkups, and they eased into life as a true family, or so they believed. Soon after, sorrow hit. Doctors warned them the pregnancy was in danger, and in the end, they couldn't rescue the child. Ethan was crushed. He'd already envisioned a small wonder bringing joy to their house, even pictured the baby's tiny fingers gripping his own. He was so eager to be a dad, and now that dream had vanished. When Lila returned from the clinic, Lila didn't seem like her normal self. The usual glow in her gaze had faded, and for a few days, she barely uttered a word. Ethan tried his hardest to support her, picking up fresh produce, aiding her healing, doing anything to lighten her load. She recovered fast, and soon she rarely spoke of their lost little one, though Ethan often found his thoughts drifting to it in the quiet of night. He'd grown so accustomed to seeing Lila as the mom of his unborn child that he overlooked the fact their marriage began solely because she was expecting. During that period, though, he truly bonded with her. Splitting up never even entered his thoughts. A year went by, and Ethan kept hauling freight for the same firm, which began to annoy Lila. She was eager to ditch her own work and wished he'd bring in extra cash so she could relax about leaving. She constantly pestered Ethan to snag a better-paying role, claiming she didn't feel that solid, dependable teammate spirit with his present job. After some questionable personal growth classes, she boldly quit, banking on it pushing Ethan to boost his earnings. That jump into uncertainty ignited their first big clash. "I warned you this isn't the moment to drop your job like that," Ethan nearly yelled. "And I'm telling you I'm tired of slaving away. I'm the lady, you're the guy, so go earn some cash." Lila shot back. Ethan was livid. For months, He'd been tucking away part of his wages to save for a home of their own. Lila, on the other hand, splashed nearly all her modest paycheck on herself, only sometimes chipping in for food. Now, the weight of every single cost would fall fully on Ethan's back. No matter how much he tried to share his view, Lila wouldn't hear it. Ethan didn't rush to switch jobs, and as weeks rolled by, Lila's feelings toward him grew frostier. Sometimes, after his exhausting shift, she wouldn't even trouble herself to cook supper, despite lounging at home all day. Instead, she started chatting up some neighbors in their complex. She didn't care much for the elderly or household with children, but one upstairs neighbor, Nolan, certainly grabbed her attention. He was youthful, handsome, and obviously wealthy. He worked from his place and stepped out now and then for a breather. That's how he and Lila crossed paths in the yard. The moment she learned this attractive, rich man was unattached, she honed in on him like a hawk. Being married didn't hold her back at all. Then one day, Ethan's sister Mia returned to the city. She had documents to sort out and longed to see their mother and reconnect with Ethan, wanting to catch her brother off guard. She slipped over to his job, and then they traveled home side by side. Ethan was overjoyed to see her, beaming with pride over all she'd accomplished. She'd purchased that flat, relocated overseas, and carved out a solid life. In a cheerful mood, he traded shifts with a colleague to clock out early. Then he and Mia popped into a shop for a pastry before going home. She was at last going to meet Lila face to face, but when they got there, the flat was silent. Lila was missing. As they got comfy in the kitchen, they heard the front door swing open. A slightly messy Lila strolled in. "Hey, where have you been?" Ethan asked, stepping out to welcome her. "Oh, I just dashed out for some matches," she replied smoothly. "We were totally out just now." Mia was about to peek into the kitchen cupboard where she just spotted a pack of matches, but she paused when Lila approached to say hi after a brief hello. Lila snatched the teapot to brew some tea and lit the very matches she'd insisted were gone. Mia kept quiet but subtly arched an eyebrow. She had a feeling something was amiss, though she wasn't sure what yet. Later that day, when Mia and Ethan found a private moment, he confided about the strain with Lila, how she'd ditch her job and expect him to cover every bill. That talk strengthened Mia's hunch that trouble simmered beneath the surface. Not long after, Mia completed her chores sooner than planned and chose to swing by the flat at noon, hoping to speak more with Lila alone. But once more, Lila wasn't there. While Mia lingered in the hallway, she picked up some racket near the stairs. Her curiosity won out, and she peeked through the door's eye-hole. What she glimpsed jolted her. Lila was happily strolling down from the upper floor with Nolan right behind. He was smiling, poking her playfully, even swatted her hips in a cheeky, too comfortable way. You didn't need a sleuth to spot it was more than casual neighbor talk. Lila stepped in and nearly bumped right into Mia, looking totally rattled. "Oh, Mia, you're back so soon," she yelped. "Yep, where have you been?" Mia asked smoothly. "Me? Oh, just dumping the trash," Lila stumbled. Mia shot her a long, icy look. "I saw you with Nolan," she said. Lila froze, her eyes flickering everywhere, her lips moving but no sound escaping at first. "Huh? Who's Nolan? You've got it wrong. All that paperwork must have worn you out. Let me fix you some tea, okay?" She darted to the kitchen. Mia resolved to share all she'd seen with Ethan. She told him she only wished the best for him, but doubted Lila had his welfare in mind. At first, Ethan resisted. He didn't want to accept it, but Mia had never deceived him, and making up tales wasn't her style. In the end, he asked Mia for some space to think it over. She left the city the next day. Ethan and Lila saw her off, and Ethan's face was somber. Before Mia went, she urged him to trust his instincts if they hinted something was wrong and look into it himself. Ethan merely dipped his head. He figured brooding over doubts wouldn't solve a thing, so he hatched a scheme. He clocked out early one afternoon, found the flat empty again, and marched right up to Nolan's place. Posing as a courier, he tapped on the door. Nolan opened it, and there was Lila wandering around his home in just one of his shirts. Roughly a week later, Mia, feeling uneasy, rang Ethan to check on him. He recounted the brawl that erupted with Nolan, how he tossed all of Lila's belongings out of their home, and how she stood yelling in the corridor until the neighbors told her to quiet down. It seemed after she couldn't settle in with her rich neighbor, she tried tricking Ethan by saying she was expecting again. But by then, Ethan was past caring. He guessed she was fibbing, and indeed, it was just a ruse. He thanked Mia again and again for opening his eyes to Lila's betrayal. After the split, Ethan threw himself into his work, ramping up his hustle. Before long, some buddies offered him a sweeter deal. His money situation improved, and he started stashing cash regularly for a home of his own. Word must have reached Lila that her former spouse was thriving, because she tried contacting him again, but that chapter was firmly shut.